Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everyone doing today? My name is Robert C Ayala, and I am a Democrat running for the Democratic nomination for president to stop the campaigns of Joe Biden, Donald Trump, or really any candidate telling you how to live, what to ingest, or how to look. Enough is enough. America was built on freedom. And somewhere along the line, we have lost our way. So, I hope everyone's doing well today on Wednesday. I believe the date is, let me double check, August 16th. It's been pretty uneventful today, so I don't have a lot of things to go over, but I still want to continue to talk to you every day because we have some mailers going out and they're going to be targeting some zip codes. And so as you get these postcards and as you get these mailers, I want you to be able to stop over here at YouTube, say hello to me. And as more and more of you get these postcards and as more and more of you get our mailers, then maybe some of you will find the time on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It was 9:15. I moved it to 9:30. I needed a little bit more time in my day. And what I would like is for you folks to jump on and ask me, what would you do if you were president? And I think this is one of those things where sometimes what is a president? You know, the only thing I can think of, and I was trying to think of an equation to put this out today, and I don't want to offend anybody. So when I say the word and I use king, you go ahead and just submit your religious views or your belief structure to that. And so what I was thinking is, when has this world really seen a good king? And I say that in the manner that when you look at most of history, first let's answer that question. Jesus was the last good king. Some people won't say he was the king. Other people will say he's the king. But what I think is more important is if you look at his life here on the planet, whatever your belief structure is or whatever you don't believe of him or do believe of him, if you just look at what he did was service for others. And service for others is what politics in this country used to be about. Somewhere along the line, it became about blue bloods and governors and families and destiny lines. And I think Trump really, he challenged that status quo. But I always say to folks, it was Trump's father who was a genius businessman. And real estate is one of those kind of like easy businesses. If you have the business, the real estate in the right location, you're going to make money. And if you get other people to work your real estate business for you in hopes that maybe one day they might become wealthy like you, we have a lot of hotel chains, and that's what they do. And it's okay. It's a good business model. But the idea of actually providing a bed and some coffee, I'm not really sure that makes you out to have the empathy that you need to be president. So although there was some good conditions with Trump in terms of him being somewhat of a business person to amass the wealth that he was able to amass, I don't think it really positioned him in the way to deal with the U.S. government that isn't always focused on a profit and revenue position. Sometimes the government has to allocate resources to things that aren't always popular. But what I want to remind everybody of is in 2002, I believe the deficit of the United States of America was a surplus when George W. Bush got into office. And today it's 30 trillion and counting. And the reality is if you just keep printing money and you keep manufacturing it without any currency behind it, it will collapse one day. Now, it's not going to collapse to China anytime soon, folks. I don't want to subscribe to people who want to invest in where you put your money or don't want to put your money. But last year, in a world of coming out of the pandemic, a war starting in Eastern Europe, uh, American currency was traded at almost 88%, which was actually, I believe, 1.5 percentage points higher than prior to the pandemic. And one of the reasons will always be is that the U.S. government, the only way they can get your money is through taxation, so they can't just, like in Russia, like in China, like in most of the Middle East, just come in and wipe out what you have. That's not allowable in the United States of America. We have due process. We have the citizen's right to use the court system. So when we look at this question, what is a president? You know, it's to be somebody who's in service for you. If you look at how the presidents in the 1950s and the 1960s, before the Kennedy assassination, they were out. They were walking around. They were with the people. They were traveling around the United States throughout the year. And then suddenly, with Gap and maybe a globalist agenda, our president started leaving Americans behind and going out and worrying about what the world thought. And I think that's a wrong position. I think that when you look at your leaders are supposed to put your interest and your needs and your concerns first. Whether you're a lawyer or an accountant, it's so funny really on the lawyer thing. We've had how many lawyers? Obama was a lawyer, Clinton was a lawyer, Reagan was an actor, but I think he also had a couple degrees. Trump, he's got some degrees, but we don't know if they were, actually earned in the same manner as other people's. But he has those degrees, so I don't want to minimize them. But when we send the lawyers, they don't do anything. Somebody who lives their life in a book is probably not the best politicians. And what I want is a new experiment. And I don't think it's an experiment that hasn't been done before. I think George Washington was the first citizen president, and I think there was a few others. And why we had the two parties is because, one side sought power and the other one didn't. Power is real in terms of Americans' rights here in the country and how we enforce our protection of our citizens when they're outside of the country. But outside of that, the people I've grown up with, the people I know from sea to shining sea, they're all free people. They don't really appreciate when you go and tell them what to do. Every man's home is his castle. So I think at the end of the day, what a true leader is somebody who puts the people first. And so if we put that as the bar going forward and we allow a debate to move forward for the Democratic nomination, then people can come talk to me. You can help me because then some of my clients will be more inclined to step out of the shadows a little bit. But if you look at Donald Trump and his accounting firm, Mazar, generally finances are private to most people and they don't want to tell the whole world. So sometimes when you go out and see some of my reviews initially, 8 or 9, maybe 10 years ago, 2009, it's a while now. I'm a boomer, I guess. I asked for them so that I could just have them there. But most people in financial markets don't want to come out and rate people and their service professionals. Most people are very private when it comes to their money. So I think at the end of the day, we should really discuss whether the current iteration of candidates out there are really what we think should be representing America. I don't, for one. I know on my side, Joe Biden does not represent me. I know Kamala Harris doesn't represent me. I know Senator Hillary Clinton doesn't represent me. I know Gavin Newsom doesn't represent me. I don't really have any other names because nobody else is really vying to jump on the stage because everybody's staying in their place. So that's where we're at. So we're going to jump to the news here. Let me make sure that, Google is denying my stream again. Whatever. It'll probably take a couple months for them to get some people, and I'm hoping with some of the mailings that I do, I can get some of you folks to jump on. So enough with that, shrilling for myself. I told you yesterday that the case against Donald Trump, I found particularly odd that the primary district attorneys prosecuting Trump were black. It's these theories have never been tested before. And so what we find out today is that the judge assigned to all of this is been a judge for 6 months. Okay, folks, come on. The fix is in. This is not going anywhere. So I just want to, if you've been on a divorce, you've been on a criminal case, you've been in court at all, you understand how the courts work. And this young judge is going to be overwhelmed with motions on every single little thing. Do you understand that, folks? He's going to be overwhelmed on motions, unnecessarily needless amounts of motions that he has to hear every single one of them, and then he has to rule on every single one of them. And he has 18 defendants, and each are going to bring in the most high-powered attorneys in this country. And they have to just turn one juror, folks. One juror. That's it, one juror. And the reality is, every time he rules against one of their motions, then it's an issue that can go to appeal. And so then it goes to state appeal, and then it goes to federal appeal, right? And everybody thinks this is for show. This is to try to make Donald Trump drop out of the election. But I don't see why he does. His poll numbers keep going up, and Joe Biden's poll numbers keep going down. So it doesn't matter how many people on MSNBC or CNN or the HuffPost, how many times you convince yourself. You convinced yourself that Hillary was going to be the president too. Look what happened. You convinced yourself that Joe Biden was going to be the president, and Joe Biden is the president, but let's be clear. Joe Biden's victory was not called until very, 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 very late on that day. And I don't even think it was called on that day. It was called a few days later once all the votes were counted. But the total head count is like 10,000 people, 10,000 votes. And I promise you right now that the 10,000 votes that came out of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, well, Michigan might be able to erase the gains there, but Pennsylvania, no. No, see, Fetterman lost big in Pennsylvania. And what I mean is he lost big is he won, and he beat Dr. Oz, and then he instantly went into the hospital because his health was just terrible to begin with. And the voters of Pennsylvania are going to remember that. I don't think Pennsylvania flips to Joe Biden this time. So that's one state, and then you're looking at Wisconsin and Michigan. And Michigan probably, it'll probably stay in the Democratic hands, but Wisconsin, that'll probably be the new battleground this year, because I think Pennsylvania is going to go red again because of the Senate results of Senator Fetterman, and just how embarrassing that is now. And look, there's nothing wrong with being sick in the United States of America. Being sick is okay. But when you have a stroke and when you're stuttering in front of the camera like Mitch McConnell, and you're getting wheeled in like Senator Dianne Feinstein, and now there's an elder abuse charge against Senator Dianne Feinstein, and you're sandbagging the constituents. You're lying to them. You're putting forward deficient characters who have lied, right? They're not healthy. And I think when we're talking about the federal government and the upper echelons of the power that is meant to deter the rest of the world from touching us and our citizens, we're doing a poor job. And I know that Steve Christie's rising in the polls on the Republican side, but let's not forget that Chris Christie locked down a bridge from New York to New Jersey left the citizens of that bridge on the bridge for hours, stranded, because he had a dispute with a mayor, not from New York City, but from New Jersey. He disrupted the lives of nearly 6 million people for a petty dispute. If anything, Donald Trump learned from Chris Christie. So why anybody out there in New Hampshire is pushing Chris Christie to the top when you already have Donald Trump? Just stick with Donald Trump. Take your candidate and run with him. But this case against Donald Trump is doomed. And the one in New York City is doomed, because at the end of the day, Joe Biden is president. And even though Trump did all this nonsensical crap, it's the same crap Al Gore did. He just chose a different theater to do it in. Trump did his theater in social media and the public opinion, and Al Gore did his in the court of law, going to the state of Florida, raising constitutional challenges, using the appeal process, getting all the way to the Supreme Court that decided it, right? And not one moment did anybody call Al Gore a traitor. Not one time did anyone say Al Gore was an election denier. Not one time. Cheering him on. So there we are again. I'm going to leave it alone. Let's go on to one little bit of more funny news. And it just his character. Because Biden's been lying all his life. He lies about everything, you know. And this time he claims he witnessed the Pittsburgh Bridge collapse. He witnessed it himself, he says, okay? He was there. He had future powers. See, the thing is he saw the my buddy on, this is funny, I thought I had closed down Steam. He had actually had the foresight to see that the bridge was going to collapse, right? But he didn't do enough to save the life that the bridge collapsed on, right? And he didn't do anything to make a phone call to let the people in New Jersey know that the bridge was about to collapse. So, it's just, why? Like, who cares what you think? But when you've been in the Senate for 40 years, when you've been in the government for 40 years, when you've really haven't done anything, you have no production value that you've put forward, then you just make up shit all the time. And I think that the age of Biden making up shit all the time, I'm over it. And I'm really tired of Kamala Harris laughing at everything. Laughing when she goes to the border, laughing when she goes overseas, laughing. Everything's a damn joke to her. And again, it just shows that you, the American people, when you go to work every day, you go to work to be serious, to get things done, and your government behind your back is just doing everything behind your back. And none of it is for you. It's each time so they can line the pockets of the next group that comes in, the next group of people that's going to be the next group of millionaires. I don't got no friends, and what I would promise you is, I think there was a day when people were prevented from leaving government and weren't allowed to be lobbyists for government for a couple of years. I thought the 2-year mark was way too short, but 5 years should be good. I think that anybody working in any of my administration, anywhere in my administration, who's a political appointee should have to sign a piece of paper that says for 5 years they won't come back and petition the government once they leave. People need to remember who the government's for. All right? And it's not here for them. It's not for Hunter. It's not for Donald Trump's kids. It's not for any of them. It's supposed to be here for you. And it's supposed to be making your life easier. And I don't hear anybody still today on August 16th telling anybody how they're going to make your life easier. So that's where it is. That's all I got today, folks. You first. I promise. Always you first. Everything about me is that. You can go to Rob the Accountant on YouTube. You can go to Kabbalah Tax. The term Kabbalah is a form of I don't even like to say it, Jewish mysticism, but where I took it from was from the word altruism, right? Giving to others, being there for others. And I think that's what my life was put here for, is to be here for other people. And whether this is the task, who knows? We won't know until we get there or we don't get there. But it doesn't change who I am. And it doesn't change the fact that I will always put you first because I'm a real Democrat. And a real Democrat is somebody who puts you first, people before profits. Thank you. Have a great night. I hope you watch this on YouTube later. And I hope some of you guys can start joining me on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9:30, and ask some questions, and that we can really force a primary of Joe Biden. And maybe, just maybe, the next leader of this free country will be somebody who's not over the age of 60. Have a good night, and thank you.